Welcome to the Aussie Game Podcast, where we talk all things Australian football. Coming up on this episode is Alex Badolato, a World Cup bolter. His blistering start to the A-League season, including a stunning hat-trick against Melbourne Victory. The new look Matildas side get it done late against Wales with a 2-1 win. We wrap all the Aussies playing abroad with three of our strikers scoring overnight. The Socceroos have announced their fixtures for the November window and they're heading back to the States. There's also plenty happening in the A-League and the Australian Championship, and we'll finish things off with our team of the week. Now, unfortunately, Mopper is not with us this week, but straight off the subs bench, we've brought in someone who knows plenty about Australian football. My dad, Ross. Welcome to the Aussie Game Podcast. Glad to have you.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it.
All right, let's kick things off. Let's talk about that man, Alex Badolato. He had an absolutely stunning performance for the Newcastle Jets on Friday night as they tore apart Melbourne Victory, and he was certainly right at the heart of it. He scored a stunning hat-trick, two absolute crackers, and one that he slotted home on the end of some really nice play from the Newcastle Jets, who were very impressive as a whole. But I suppose the question tonight is that, is he actually a genuine chance of making this World Cup squad with Popovic? My thoughts is that he actually fits Popovic's system quite well, playing in one of those two attacking positions behind the strikers. I think that we've tried to fit in some square pegs in some round holes with some other players, but I think he might be a perfect fit. And while it might be out of the blue, I think he might be a good fit for the Socceroos. What do you think?
I think he apart from a number of Jets there that played the other night, I agree with you. I think Jets tore Victory apart and they just opened them up completely because of the one-touch football they played. They moved off the ball very quickly once they passed, and I think Badolato would be a man that we need in our Socceroos team, really, just behind our strikers.
Yeah, and I think like fresh off his AFC Young Player of the Year award, he's certainly gone from strength to strength. Of course, he hit that stunning strike, which ultimately ended up in a loss for the Jets against the Mariners in the first round. But he's certainly a player with lots of confidence. His ability to not only strike those, we've seen those strikes from distance, but get involved in the build-up play. He's got a great work rate, plenty of skill. I certainly think that, and Popovic was obviously there in attendance on Newcastle on Friday night, potentially looking at some other players in, Denny Jonro and potentially a few others, but not the worst thing to put on that kind of performance with the Socceroos coach in the stands.
That's exactly right. And I actually, as I watched A-League games this weekend, I made sure that I penciled in names, mainly young players, who stood out. And there are a number of them. As you said, John Rowe from Melbourne Victory. I thought young Dobson, even though it's a bit early for him yet, I thought he had a good game for the Jets. There's
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, he was key to that goal, that second goal that Badolato scored. His nice touch, and I actually couldn't believe that he wriggled around and got enough room there to get past Esposito and then cut that ball back beautifully. So, as you said, probably a bit too young, a bit too raw to be on Popovic's radar, but certainly a player for the future, as many of those Jets players are.
Yes, most definitely. And depending on the number of players Popovich is allowed to take, I don't know exactly what the numbers are in the squad or what you're allowed, but a young player, if he's able to come along just to train with the players, I think he could. There's so much future in Socceroos. You can see with our under-17s, our under-20s, and they're coming out of the A-League. This is what a lot of people don't realise. They're coming out of academies. If the more influential or financial clubs don't give them a chance, they'll go to other clubs who do need players. And that's where they get their chance in the A-League. And they stand
Well,
out.
look, Alex Badolato is the perfect example of that because obviously last season he was on the books at Western Sydney Wanderers, wasn't getting a lot of game time. He then went after that successful Asian Cup win. He went on loan to Melbourne Victory, limited game time again, and it just shows that he's gone to Newcastle, has been given a chance under Mark Milligan, and look how well he's taken it. He's absolutely thriving.
Yes, I agree. And that's where these young players, if they go to a club who don't have the financial backing that some of these big clubs have, they will get an opportunity and they will stand out because in a game like that, the Jets against Melbourne Victory, who would have thought? Who would have thought the Jets would just tear them apart? And they did.
Yeah, they certainly did. So let's just run through the game. So Victory did have a good spell of possession early, probably the first 10 minutes or so, and then Ben Gibson opened the scoring. Again, it was a really nice play because he was first to react after Jack Duncan parried Alex Badolato's shot. But again, Will Dobson involved in that. The three of those three players from the Jets had a hand in a lot of the good things for the Jets. And then the Jets after that had a good spell of possession, and then Badolato, his goal in the 20th minute, absolute screamer. Just one possession, pushed the ball forward, and then curled it in the top right corner. Jack Duncan in goal for Melbourne Victory had absolutely no chance. Victory kind of came back into the game a little bit. Denny Jonro popped up in the 25th minute and scored. And then that goal that we were talking about just before, where it was a ball into the channel for Ben Gibson, slid into Will Dobson, who skipped around Esposito, cutting it back to Alex Badolato, and then yeah, 3-1 at half time, and the Jets were really running away with it at that point.
Yes, I think it's just the quick play off the ball. A lot of one-touch football there during that game, and one player would just hit the ball to another player, move again, and receive again, just moving into spaces, and just they were turning Victory inside out at one stage.
I think, yeah, McBreen made that point at halftime as well. The fact that they were almost chasing shadows because by the time they moved into a space, the ball was gone. Like they were moving the ball that quickly.
That's right, and it's the speed off the ball, off the pass. Some of these young players that I've watched this week in A-League games, that's what they do. It's just a pass and move again. And by the time the player marking them is wondering where they are, they're gone.
Yeah, absolutely. I recall that at halftime when they were analysing the game, they were talking about Mark Milligan's philosophy, and the notes I wrote down was that when in doubt, play forward. How would you like to be a player where your coach is instilling that in you? So don't doubt yourself. Just if you're not sure of yourself, the idea is to get forward, play the ball forward, whether that's you running or you playing the ball forward, and that's such a exciting setup that the Jets have got under Mark Milligan there. At the start of the second half, Denny Jonro, he found a yard of space, slid the ball in for Keegan Jelicic, who clipped the ball over James Delinoff. Not a bad finish. So the Victory kind of came back into it, but then from that point on, the Jets really ran away with it. Badolato completed his hat trick with another stunning strike in the 79th minute from outside the box into the bottom left corner. And then Oscar Fryer, he rounded out the scoring. Nice clip ball across from Daniel Wilmering to head home. So very comprehensive victory from the Jets in the end.
Yes, I agree. And one of the things I noticed was the way they were playing the ball out of the back. And rather than hit the ball passes wide, they were hitting up the channels straight up the centre. And that's where they weren't marked and they were able to turn on the ball quite often.
Yeah, they made the point during the commentary as well that they were really targeting Jason Davidson's side as well. Like they thought particularly that with Josh and Sarah for Victory on the other side that they might target that side, but they were certainly overloading that left defensive side for the Victory and getting plenty of reward for that as well. But let's just quickly chat about Melbourne Victory as well because they don't often get beaten by those kind of margins. So they're under some pressure early in the season. They had a decent combative 0 draw with Auckland first round, but they're away to Perth next week and talk about two coaches under pressure in Arthur Dillers and David Zrilich. That's going to be a key battle even at this early part of the season.
Most definitely. And that's a game that could end up in a 4-all draw. Who knows? The way these teams play. I watched Perth the other day, and they they're a good side. They've got some good young players there. They're just getting a click. They just got to get their their general. I don't know what it is the teamwork and philosophy they're going, and I think they'll be a hard team. A
Yeah,
lot
it's a
of
good
young
point
players
because
there.
yeah, well, it's a good point because the first half or so against Wellington Phoenix, they looked unbelievable, but then obviously conceded 2 goals against them, and then they were way off the pace against Melbourne City. So as you said, that one could end up with any kind of result. But certainly, Dillis and Zulic will be under pressure coming into that one. We're going to run through the rest of the A-League games a little bit later in the episode, but let's have a quick chat about the Matildas because they played a friendly game against Wales overnight. It was a pretty different lineup that Joe Montemurro put out compared to what we've seen for the Matildas in the past. So let's just go through some of the highlights. So Sam Kerr obviously making her Matildas comeback. We've seen her get limited game time for Chelsea, but she was there from the start for Joe Montemurro. Tegan Micah preverting goals to Mackenzie Arnold, despite not getting a lot of games at Leon. Pretty new look backline with Caitlin Torpey on the right, Courtney Nevin on the left, and then Winona Heatley. I was pleased to see Winona get her chance in the centre of that defence. Claire Hunt obviously there for the experience as well. And then we saw a new partnership in defensive midfield, Katrina Gorry, Claire Wheeler at the base, which meant that Kyra Cooney-Cross got further forward, which I know people have been calling for. And then, all our experienced players on the wings there, Caitlin Ford on one side, and then Hayley Razzo making her 100th appearance for the Matildas on the wing. So certainly I think Joe Montemurro, what are we now? Probably 4 or 5 months out from the Asian Cup.
Asia Cup, yeah.
He's certainly looking at probably building a bit of depth. He knows the types of players that he can count on. When we think about that back line, Steph Catley, Ellie Carpenter, not in that starting lineup, but he's looking for that depth. He's looking to build his squad to know that there's players there that he can count on.
He's one coach that I've been calling for a while, for a number of years, ever since he was at Arsenal with the Arsenal women's team. And then he went to Lyon, and he's just a proven coach. And he's the sort of guy, he's an Australian, he knows the game, and you look at the way his teams play, they play attacking football, which suits us, suits our Matildas, because we have an attacking team.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that was evident even in those games they played in WA, his first games in charge, that you could tell that he was going to be willing to get through those teething issues to make sure that his players played the ball on the deck and they played the ball through the lines and they were confident. We're talking about Milligan before. So similar idea, keep possession, but keep it moving forward, be positive with the ball. So he's certainly introducing that philosophy, but I think he's also picking players that are going to do that for him as well. I think the likes of Claire Wheeler coming in, Winona Heatley is a good ball playing defender as well. So I think he's kind of adjusting things a little bit in that sense, but it's all with an eye to building towards this Asian Cup because it's going to be a tournament that I think we should go in there with the aim of winning it. I think Japan's going to be a really tough team to crack, no doubt. But I think we, on home soil, with all our support, we should be aiming to win that tournament.
Most definitely. And like you say about Wheeler, I'm happy to see her in there. She's a player with skill, she's a player with vision, and she's the sort of person that we really need in our midfield there. And alongside of Cooney Cross, yeah, it's good to see Cooney Cross getting forward.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because we know that her shots from distance, we've seen that even when she was in the A Leagues, that what capability she has there. She's great on the dead ball as well. But I think, you know, probably most people will think in a typical Matildas lineup, it will be Mary Fowler's spot in the 10, but we don't know how Joe Montemayor might be using Fowler. He might see her as a wide player or in that 10, but I think Cooney Cross is a great. She's still so young. She's still only 23,
Yeah.
and obviously Fowler's 22 as well, but I think having those two kind of in those attacking positions, if Fowler's fit for the tournament, is only going to be beneficial for us. But yeah, the more we can get Cooney Cross on the ball in those four positions, because she's such a good ball carrier as well. She can bring the ball forward, she can pick a pass, she's got a shot. So having her further up the pitch, I think is only beneficial for us.
She's the sort of player that can put the ball in spaces for a player like Kerr as well. And even, Heyman, depending on whether Michelle Heyman will get in the squad, it's getting stronger. This squad that we're looking at, it's getting stronger all the time. So a lot of players who thought they may have been, an easy selection may not be. They may have to work hard on their game
Yeah, and
because
it's so
some of
good.
these young players are really talented.
Yeah, it's so good seeing these young players come through and being given the opportunity. We know that Tony Gustavsson, previous Matildas coach, he's a very tight knit squad. Didn't select too many outside of probably about 14 or 15 players. So yeah, great to see these players get their opportunity, and I think it's only going to be beneficial for us not only towards the Asian Cup but longer term as we start to introduce. And there's a lot of them playing over in Europe as well now, like just kind of in some good solid leagues, like in Sweden or Heatley's in Italy. There's a few in Italy now, so a few in Germany too. So they're getting exposure in these tough leagues, and they're going to know what it takes when they get to the Asian Cup.
Most definitely. The countries that you mentioned in Europe, they're the sort of countries that suit Australian players, in my opinion, because of it teaches them about controlling the ball, keeping possession, distribution, and I like the way the game. I saw in the A League, and I've seen with the Matildas, ball on the ground, ball on the ground. No, none of this. You don't have to cross the ball in the air. Get it back. Just keep it on the ground, and you'll find the holes.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go through the goals then. So Australia's first came from Courtney Nevin. It was her first for the Matildas as well. So congratulations to Courtney Nevin. Her free kick was probably targeted to Sam Kerr, but it evaded everyone and snuck into the back of the net. Wales are then equalised. A bit sloppy from the Matildas. It was a nice chip to lob Tegan Micah, but she had no chance to getting it. So probably something that they want to clean up there in defence. But then the winner for the Matildas, just as you were saying, really well put together. So it started with Holly McNamara tussling for the ball in midfield. She won it. She played it forward, releasing Ellie Carpenter. She had a couple of touches and then pushed it into a space for Cooney Cross, who got her eyes up. And then, as you're saying, just play that ball. Not nice cutback along the floor, and then Caitlin Ford perfectly ran onto it and finished. So nice little Arsenal combination there to complete the goal. But the way it was put together, I'm sure Joe Montemayor would be very happy with how they've approached that one.
Yes, you can see improvement coming along all the time, and as I was mentioning before, I just like to see the younger players coming through and showing what they've got.
Yeah,
And I
definitely.
think Joe is doing the right thing there. He's trying to build a bigger squad, a bigger option as far as these tournaments coming up.
Yeah, even some of the players of the bench, the likes of Amy Sayer, Holly McNamara, they're really starting to push their case for some starting positions too. So, as I said from the start, like Joe Montemayor really just building some depth in the squad, which is going to be very important as we go forward. Speaking of going forward, our next game is against England Wednesday morning. Plenty of our Matildas will be very familiar with the England team, with a lot of them playing in the WSL in England, but it'll be a very tough challenge. Obviously, England being Euro champions and got knocked out or got beaten in the final by Spain at the most recent World Cup. So it'll be a a bigger challenge than what Wales was, but I think we'll really see where we're at with this team once we have that England game.
I'm looking forward to it. I think that they're the sort of games that we need to take on where someone might be ranked a bit higher, someone might be considered a better team. Let's go on and take them on. And if we can get past these teams, beat them 1-0, 2-1, whatever, and it gives you pride in what you're doing. And
Yeah, and
that's
it'll give them
a big
a whole
thing.
heap of confidence as well heading
Yes.
into that Asian Cup. All right, so yeah, we'll keep an eye on that Matildas game on Wednesday morning, and then we'll review that game on the next podcast. Let's head overseas in England. Let's run through our Aussies playing abroad, and we're going to start in the Championship in England. Hayden Matthews got a rare start for Portsmouth for the first time this season. Played 71 minutes. Unfortunately, he conceded an own goal. He did when he was withdrawn in the 71st minute, there was some mixed reports on whether he was withdrawn due to injury or cramp. So hopefully it's not an injury because we know that there's already three of our Aussies there at Portsmouth carrying injuries, so we don't want a fourth. Pompey unfortunately lost that 1-0, but good to see Hayden Matthews getting a start. We know I'd like to see him get more game time when he comes into Socceroos camps, but at least he's getting some club football under his belt.
Yeah, so he's a player of the future, and he's the sort of central defender that I would like to see moved into the squad, most definitely. And I haven't seen a lot of him play since he's been at Portsmouth, but I know what he was like when he was playing A-League, and there weren't too many attacking players who could get past him. He's very
No,
quick
yeah.
and very good in the air.
Yep. Also reads the game very well to Hayden Matthews. Speaking of his teammate, Adrian Segacic, so he was withdrawn during the week after only playing about 10 minutes. It was an ankle injury. Kind of a lot of people thought the worst, but reports are coming out now that it's only about 4 to 6 weeks, which in the circumstance is a good thing, thinking that it could have been a lot worse for him. So we don't know what's happening with him in terms of Socceroos, but this will definitely rule him out of selection for the November window. And then I guess we'll just have to wait and see going forward if he's in Tony Popovic's plans for the World Cup squad. Let's have a look at some other players in the championship. Nestor Irankunda got 26 minutes off the bench as Watford lost 3-1 to Coventry, who was still unbeaten in the league. Lewis Miller, he put in a solid 90-minute performance, including an assist, as Blackburn came from behind to beat Southampton 2-1. Really important win for Blackburn because they were really struggling at the bottom of the championship, or not rock bottom, but toward the bottom. So, yeah, really important win. And Lewis Miller, a key contributor in that one.
I like the way Lewis Miller plays. He's a hard player, he's a strong player, but he gets up and down that flank continuously, and he seems to have so much stamina. You just
Yeah,
need the right person, you know, in around the back of him, and I think we're starting to form a pretty good defensive pattern at the back, and we can go forward.
Yeah, definitely. Over at Derby, 90 minutes for Callum Elder, the left back in Derby's 1-0 win over QPR. Middlesbrough remain second despite being held to a 1-1 draw with Wrexham. Sammy Silvera played the second half, so good to see him still getting some minutes at Borough. Rylan McGree was an unused sub, but it's good to see him at least being included in these matchday squads for Middlesbrough after that long injury layoff. Speaking of injuries, unfortunately, it was confirmed during the week that Massimo Luongo has suffered an ACL injury midweek in Millwall's 2-0 win over Stoke. So plenty of people thought that he might be in contention for that World Cup squad. It was probably a bit of a long shot. He would have brought some experience in there, but really shocking news for Mas Luongo with that ACL injury. So devastating for him. And yeah, we wish you all the best, Mas, for a speedy recovery. Another in our backline, Cam Burgess, who turned 30 during the week. He put in another solid shift for Swansea as they beat Norwich 2-1. So some mixed results for our Aussie boys in the championship, but certainly those defenders getting some good game time.
Yes, players like Cam Burgess, I think he's the sort of person we really need there at the centre of defence, and alongside of his central defensive partner.
Play with him, yeah.
Is
Yeah,
the player that I like, and with him playing a bit wider now, with under Popovic's system, he can get up and down the flank. Once he goes forward, he's got so much skill and vision
yeah,
again. He's a
yeah,
player with
absolutely.
vision.
No, we'll talk about him in a second as well. But let's go to League One at Cardiff. Alex Robertson was a shocking starter. Didn't see this one coming at all. This was his first minutes since May, so 5 months ago. He started and played 77 minutes in Cardiff's 1-0 loss to Bolton. Still only 22. Alex Robertson obviously was included in the squad for Tony Popovic, but not included in either of the match days. He was the most fouled player and had a passing accuracy of 91%. So it'd be good to see him get back up to speed. Obviously, it's been a long time since he's had some minutes, but potentially this most recent call up into the Socceroos squad has given him a bit of a boost, and it might mean that he's called up again in November. So I guess we'll wait and see.
He's definitely a player that we should be looking at because, firstly, his age or lack of age. He's only a young guy and he has potential and he's player of the future. All these young people are players of the future.
Yeah.
Just look at our
Let's start.
Socceroos 17s and 20s.
Yeah, they're all performing really well. So
Yeah.
it's fantastic to see this generation coming through. Let's go head over to Scotland. Dundee United versus St Mirren. So Zach Sapsford scored his 5th goal of the season. Good to see him back in some goal scoring form. It was a nice free kick that he scored late in the first half for Dundee United as they came from behind to win 3-1. On the other side of the pitch, Keanu Bacchus played the full 90 for St Mirren. Don't think he's really in the Socceroos frame at the moment, but good to see him fitting him back into St Mirren after he had a season or two away. And then another goal scorer in the Livingston versus Motherwell game, Apostolos Stamatoulopoulos. He converted a penalty in the 81st minute. Oh, sorry, in his 81-minute performance in Motherwell's 2-1 win over Livingston. So Johnny Contribus also came on late for Motherwell, while Teddy Yengi got 20 minutes off the bench for Livingston. So Sapsford and Stamatolopoulos are interesting ones. Haven't been included much in Popovic's squads, or Sapsford hasn't at all in his case. But while they continue to score goals in Scotland, they have to be on Popovic's radar.
I agree. Sapsford, when he was playing here in A League, he was crucial, and he was the sort of player that no one could stop. He just seems to be putting them away quite easily. He goes to Scotland, and he's doing the same. So
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
surely goal scorers, they're like gold.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the best things about Satford as well, and why I think he fits Popovic's system, is his work rate. With him and Borello in combination last year, they were like dogs to a bone. They wouldn't let up on any defenders.
No.
But then Satford adds the clinical finishing on top of that as well. So I think he's a perfect type of player for Popovic's system. If he wants someone who's going to work harder up the top, and someone who's going to run in behind for him as well. But yet to be called up for Popovic, but maybe the November window is the opportunity for him.
Yes, I'd like to see players like Sapsford. There's a number of players that I've watched in the A League, young kids. One of them, Kachowski for Perth, but I got a feeling he got injured, didn't he, in their
He was,
game?
yeah, he was definitely holding his groin. Yeah, he got taken
That's
off with a
right,
groin
yeah.
injury. Yeah, so
So
um,
hopefully that's not anything major because I think he's a really talented player, very quick.
just good to see him getting some time
Yeah.
because he was frozen out at Sydney, and then obviously had that quick spell at Western United before that went awry. But yeah, just great to see him playing. So, sorry, Kucharski. So let's stay in Europe. Let's go to Italy. So Alessandro Ciccardi, their Parma played out a 0-0 draw with Como. Ciccardi played a full game. The Parma have actually conceded the third least goals per game of any team in Serie A. So Ciccardi's doing a great job there at Parma. I think for them, goal number one is always going to be just survive the relegation. They're out of the relegation zone at the moment, but they've had some decent results so far this season, and clearly based on that start, their defence is quite solid, and Chicardi's right at the centre of that.
I was going to say, when he plays in the centre of defence, he's the sort of player that can win a ball and retain it and distribute it. It's just it's the vision. It's the vision that he's got.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a star. If not now, he's definitely a star for the future. And yeah, he's going to be in a Socceroos jersey and potentially a future captain permanently. We've seen him given the armband on a temporary basis, but potentially a future permanent captain. So we'll wait and see. Speaking of, Jackson Irvine played his first minutes since April, coming on as a late substitute in St. Pauli's 2-0 loss to Eintracht Frankfurt. Connor Metcalf also got 29 minutes off the bench. So good to see Jackson Irvine getting back onto the pitch. We know how crucial he is to the Socceroos, and no doubt that hopefully, touch wood, that he's not having any more injuries and he'll be in that November squad for the Socceroos, you'd think.
Yes, I hope so. I think he's the sort of guy, when he's on the pitch, he's like a leader. It's like he may not be captain, but he's a leader within the ranks of the midfield. And, he keeps talking. He's a distributor, hard worker.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the Netherlands. The Eredivisie, Max Ballard, former Central Coast Mariner, played 82 minutes as Nac Breda. Scored in stoppage time to rescue a point in a 3-3 draw. I know he's one of your favourites, Maxi Ballard, and he's speaking of players not taking a backward step from moving from the A League into Europe, but ever since he's touched down the Netherlands, he hasn't missed a step.
Now, he's a player that I know, being a Mariners fan, he's one that they missed terribly once he left. But it's great to see him moving on and stepping up, and he should be in the Socceroos squad as well. He should be rewarded, basically. A lot of these young kids, reward them by offering them a chance in the squad.
Yeah, definitely. Someone who's not having the best time in the Eredivisie is Aiden Rustic. He played 90 minutes, Heracles, as they went down 3-0. But his team, they remain rooted to the bottom of the table in the Eredivisie. So, yeah, fortunately for Rustic, things not going all that well at the moment. But if we drop down a division in the Netherlands, one player who might take his spot if things keep going the way they're going. But Cam Pupion's ADO Den Haag, they extend their lead at the top of the table with a 2-1 win over FC Den Bosch. Pupion played 60 minutes in the win. So, yeah, they're absolutely flying in the second division in the Netherlands, and they look a good chance to get promoted. Josh Nisbet, another of your Central Coast Mariners, played 90 minutes for Roto JC as they scrapped to a 2-2 draw with Vitesse. So they're not actually far away from the top of the table in the second division of the Netherlands. So, but good to see Niz playing consistently over there as well.
Yeah, he again is another reliable midfielder. He's a worker and works hard, never gives up on the ball. And because he's low to the ground, he's a very hard player to get the ball off. So if he comes up against taller players, especially defenders, they find it very hard to take that ball from him.
Yeah. Let's go to Austria. Unfortunately for Jacob Italiano, his grades are AK, cannot buy a win. They're 11 games into the season, have not yet won a game. But look, by all reports, Jacob Italiano is playing really well in that poor team. And we've seen that when he got called up to that Socceroos squad, he obviously impressed in training because it's not something that Popovic usually does. Usually brings players in first time, has a look. But Taliano's obviously done enough in training to get picked in both games against Canada and USA. So he's doing some good things, and I think he's a good solution on the right side of defence. I know you mentioned Lewis Miller before, but Italiano can actually play both sides as well. So good cover for a squad player at the very least.
Most definitely. They're the sort of players that I'm sure he would have two players, maybe three, almost penciled in for every position that he wants to play.
Yeah, Italiano's good cover there. Nick D'Agostino, he scored again overnight in Vikings' big 5-1 win, which keeps them top in Denmark. Obviously, he was recently caught up from the Socceroos as well. Gianni Stensner, so he continues his return from injury, played the second half of Viking. Over in Croatia, Hajduk Split, they picked up a 3-1 win over HNK Gorica, sending them top temporarily in Croatia. Anthony Kalic got 6 minutes off the bench for Split. Fran Karacic still injured, unfortunately. In Switzerland, Liam Chipperfield got 31 minutes off the bench in Sion's 1-0 loss to first place Thun, but Sion remained fourth. Mitch Duke plays 57 minutes in Makita Zelvia's 0-0 draw with Urawa Red Diamonds. And Arthur Pappas, his side, Cerezo Osaka, they had a 2-0 win over Kawasaki Frontale. So a bit of an upset win, that one. Unfortunately, in the USA, they're into the playoffs there in the MLS. Patrick Yazbek's Nashville went down 3-1 to Inter Miami in the first leg of their MLS playoff game. Yazbek played 69 minutes while Messi scored a double for Inter Miami. So good experience for Yazbek to come up against the likes of Messi and Suarez and Busquets, but a tall order as well. But look, again, like he's become an important part of that Socceroos midfielder Patrick Yazbek. So it's all experience for him at this stage.
Most definitely, it's the way to educate him, and nothing better than coming up against Messi.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, maybe not at the time, but maybe he reflects back and thinks that was a good
Yeah,
experience.
I'm sure
um,
he looks back at it and works out which way he should have turned, but didn't.
yeah, well, he wouldn't be the first one to get undone by Messi, that's for sure.
No.
All right, let's talk Socceroos because they have announced their fixtures for the November window. So first up, they're going to take on Venezuela. That match is going to be played in Houston, and then next they'll play Colombia, which will be played in New York. So those two cities are two that are going to host games at the World Cup. So surely the line of thinking for the Socceroos, we know they recently played in Canada and the USA for those friendlies in the October window, but the more experience they can get in the conditions that they're going to play in the World Cup. They haven't played any South American opponents since they lost 2-0 to Argentina in June 2023. So it's all experience heading in the right direction. And I think they're pretty smart opponents. And I like the fact that we're going back to, as much as we would have liked to have seen them play in Australia, I think if that's not possible, playing in the conditions you're going to play in the World Cup makes a lot of sense to me.
I think that's a smarter move, really, and I think preparing for the World Cup by playing in those conditions, getting ready
Yeah,
for it.
I agree. I think yeah, they it's going to be different to other World Cups, and they often speak about the heat and the humidity. We're obviously not going to be playing at this exact time of the year, but the more they can get used to the conditions. Popovich even mentioned in the last camp, looking at different training venues and camps and things that they can have. So the more exposure and the more the players can get used to playing in these countries, the better. We obviously have a few that play in America anyway, but yeah, I think it's the right thing for them to do. And just looking at their opponents, so Colombia finished third in World Cup qualifying out of South America, so they're going to be a very tough opposition to come up against. So that'll be a really good test. Venezuela finished eighth. They won't be at next year's World Cup. So not a lot for them to play for, but I still think it's about the style we've come up against. So we obviously played through Asia. We played New Zealand. We've seen some North American opponents. I thought we might have played potentially an African team in this just to get used to their kind of style, but we do have one more window before the World Cup, so maybe that's a chance to play maybe one African team, one European team as we get closer. But as I said, we haven't played a South American team in over 2 years, so it'll be a good challenge. And they approach the game differently to lots of other continents. So it's good to come up against that style because there's every chance that we're going to get a South American team in our group at the World Cup.
Yeah, you need the variety, and you need to be aware of different countries and the way that country play and work the ball around and things like that. Whether they're physical, whether they're more ball on the ground, keep it at your feet, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we know they're going to be technical, and we know they're going to want to keep possession mainly. So it may the way that we're approaching games these days, anyway, it might suit us because we tend to sit back and play on the counter. So it would be a good test for us to see if we can hold out defensively, but then also be dangerous going forward, assuming that Popovich is going to keep his formation and his approach to games, which I don't think we can expect any different based on what we've seen so far.
No, I think he's the sort of coach that believes in retaining possession and making sure that the opposition can't score. If they don't score, you only need one goal.
Yeah,
But
as we've
every
seen.
time they score, you need more.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. All right, yeah, so let's look forward to those Socceroos games coming up. No doubt we'll get a squad in the next couple of weeks. So again, as each squad gets selected, we get more and more clues as to what Popovich is thinking for his World Cup squad. So it'll be an interesting approach whether he does. There's lots of talk about him selecting A-League players in this camp. So whether that ends up being the case, or we did speak about some of those other players playing in Europe that haven't been given chances like Sapsford. So whether he brings some of them in, I guess we'll wait and see. But it'll be very interesting to see what he does because he certainly threw in some curveballs in the last window, bringing in D'Agostino and Robertson and bringing Duke back. So wonder what his thinking is there for the next window.
Well, it could be a way, like a philosophy of making sure that all players are aware of the fact that their position is not theirs until they're good enough to be selected, because there are players out there who can take it.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on those squads set to be announced in the next couple of weeks. Let's jump back to the A League and run through the remaining games for this round. So on the early game on Saturday, we had Auckland, who beat the Wanderers 1-0. Another great crowd over at Auckland, almost 15,000 for their first home game of the season. It was Jesse Randall with the only goal in the game with a low drive from distance, which was the difference for Auckland. So they obviously remain unbeaten across the first two games. But what did you make of this game?
One player that stood out for me, and just in that game particular, was Simmons from Wanderers. I just thought that he's a player that looks good on the ball. Auckland are a good side. You can see the way Corica coaches his teams. They're strong at the back, and defensively, if you can score a goal against them, you're doing all right.
Well, yeah, as you said, similar to Popovich, right? Like he sets him up and going to make him impossible to score against. But they're so effective on set pieces with De Vries, whether that's
Yes.
a corner or a free kick or even a long throw in. They do whatever they need to do to score a goal. But as you said, they're going to be rock solid in defence. And I think the Wanderers just found that too hard to overcome. Auckland, obviously, 2 clean sheets to start the season. I heard the interview with Lawrence Thomas after the game that they just didn't start the game well enough at all, and it took him until the second half to get going. And you just really can't afford to do that against Auckland. They're such a professional outfit that if you're off your game slightly, they're going to punish you. So as you said, they did what they needed to do. 3 points, move on.
Yeah, they've got a well balanced team, and like you say, they can punish you from anywhere. That team.
Yeah, and I think Jake Gerwood-Wright coming in next to Dan Hall in there in defence, they're going to be a really solid partnership to break down. You've of course got De Vries on the left, and you got Hiroshi
Yeah.
Sakai. You got him on the right. Yeah, like that's a really solid defence.
Yeah.
So yeah,
How do you get past something like that?
yeah. Well, no one has yet so far. So we'll see who's the
And
first team to crack them.
they've got a good new keeper too, haven't they?
Yeah, I thought Ollie Sale might get a run in there, but it's Wood, isn't it, that's come in there,
Yeah,
and yeah, he's performing well so far. Big shoes to fill with Alex Paulson leaving the club, but he's doing well so far.
yeah, definitely.
All right, the next game was Melbourne City playing Perth. They absolutely thumped them 4-0. Maxi Caputo continues his excellent goal scoring form. He, of course, scored last week against the Wanderers. He scored midweek in the ACL Elite competition as well, and he scored a double in this one too. So his first one, he was in a great spot. Matt Leckie picked him out with a pass, nice composed finish. His second, Brian Kaltak, made a bit of a meal of the back pass, and Max Caputo pounced all over it and slotted home. He actually took it really nicely, but I think similar to Badolato, I think it's a bit of a stretch for the Socceroos squad. But look, goals are goals, and players in form are players in
Yeah.
form. So it's something, you know, it's so precious, isn't it? Goals in any team. So yeah, a player in form and confident, you just never know.
Well, that's it. And I think with Melbourne City, with Aurelio Vidmar, he's not afraid to put the young players in. He had to do it last year, and he's not afraid to continue doing it. Caputo, the way he finishes, very clinically, you can't give him a chance because he'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we saw that as well at the under 20 World Cup, and with him scoring those 2 goals against Cuba. In the second half for City, Zane Schreiber came off the bench. He scored an absolute cracker. Just opened his body up a bit and just bent it into that top left corner. That was a screamer. And then Kavian Rashmani, not to be outdone, scored another cracker to round out the scoring. So, what about the goal scorers for Melbourne City? Max Caputo at 20, Zane Schreiber at 20, and Kavian Rashmani at 18. So,
Yeah,
you talk about young players, and look, they're 3 goal scorers, 20 and under. So,
yeah, brilliant,
fantastic
brilliant.
to
And
see.
another player from that game that I have penciled in there is Bonnetig.
Yeah,
Um,
fantastic.
just they're they're a really good side, and they'll be a hard team to beat.
Yeah, definitely. And look, you even got Patrick Beach, who obviously came
Yep.
in last season. Many thought that was quite surprising over Jamie Young, but he's taken that opportunity, he's run with it. Plenty of people think he might be next in line for the Socceroos. Probably got an obvious top three, but as the fourth one in line, many people think it might be him. But he's a he's a type of player. He's a good keeper in the traditional sense, but great with the ball at his feet as well. Has made a few mistakes in the past season and a bit, but that's gonna happen with a ball playing keeper. But I think what he offers them through that as well, with inviting teams forward and then being able to play through them is really beneficial to the way Vidmar wants to play.
Most definitely. You can see the way that that's what I like about a lot of these young sides playing in the A-League. Ball on the ground, not too much in the air.
Yeah.
It's all on the ground. And
Yep. So yeah, Melbourne City, as you said, going to be tough to beat this season as they try to defend their championship as well as juggle their ACL elite competition as well. It was a really important win that they had during the week and come back 2-1 win, so that gets their campaign back on track. Let's talk about Sydney FC. Unfortunately for us, they beaten the Mariners 2-0. Mariners come crashing back to earth after the F3 Derby win last weekend, whereas on the other side of the pitch, Sydney FC bounced back from their opening round defeat to Adelaide, where they were actually pretty poor, pretty lackluster, but a comprehensive victory over the Mariners in front of a good crowd there at Leichhardt, and with the smaller venue, it made it look like a great atmosphere for that game.
yeah, the atmosphere at that ground sounded really great. And unfortunately for Mariners fans, but for Sydney fans, when they start singing, it must resonate all around the ground, and it pumps the players up. You can see it. And one of the players that I thought had a pretty good game in that was Toure. He put the pressure on. He might not have scored the goals where he had the chances, but he put the pressure on the defence. And one player, I've got to mention him because he's a Mariners player, is a young Tap. He's just coming back from injury from last year, and He's normally a midfielder. He's playing in the centre of defence, and he had a big game.
Yeah.
Very good
Well, he's
game.
got that versatility there, Tap. I know that his preference would be to playing in midfield, but he can drop back in that defence if needed. So, yeah, good versatile player. But it's just great to see him back and playing after that long injury layoff.
Most definitely. Yeah.
And for Sydney FC, so their goals came through Victor Campuzano. He opened the scoring, turning his miss kick, which could have been a bit of a blooper, into a cheeky little back heel. And then Patrick Wood came off the bench to seal the victory with a nice finish after being teed up by Joe Lolly. So don't know what to make of Sydney. They were really poor against Adelaide. Have obviously bounced back against the Mariners, but I guess we'll kind of see how they're tested throughout the season to see what they come up with. But there's a balance of a pretty young squad, but they should be defensively pretty solid now with some of the inclusions they've made there. And then yeah, I think maybe it's just forming those combinations up front, whether it is Toure or Campzano and Kispe, came in the Peruvian for this game. So there's probably just got to find their right mix there.
Yeah, it's like that with any big squad. You've just got to, and certain games, certain opponents, you have to play a different type of game, and you have to adjust your. You can't just go in there and play the same system or the same way. Some opposition sides won't let you do that.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
And I think
what do you make? Sorry, go.
you're right. I just think Adelaide, the way they play, they're going to be good too.
Yeah.
They,
Yeah. Plenty of young players, plenty of young talent
yep,
there.
yeah.
And what do you make of the Central Coast Mariners? Obviously, a huge win in the derby against the Jets, but can they keep it up throughout the season? I think this is going to be the challenge for them because they can probably get up for a derby, but with that young squad and inexperienced squad, can they get up week after week against all these teams?
I think defensively they can show a bit more strength. Probably where we really lack, or where Mariners really lack, is a good clinical finisher.
Mm.
Like I looked at the way Wood finished that chance for Sydney, one chance, and he put it away.
Yeah,
I know I've seen him over the years playing, and he's missed a few, but
yeah.
he's the sort of player. If he's not getting a game at Sydney, send him a bit further north.
No, there's a few like that, and there's a few even at Perth that I thought that the Mariners could have picked up on a loan or some kind of a deal, because Ryan Emerson will go there and he'll toil and he'll work hard, but he just hasn't got that clinical finishing in him. And they were probably fortunate in a sense last week that DePizio played so well and created so much for them.
Yeah,
But maybe Duarte, I don't know, but the they probably, as you said, it's and we've spoken about a few already, but the strikers, it's just that's why they get paid the most in the world, isn't it? Because putting the ball in the back of the net's the hardest thing to do in the game.
yeah. Well, I was only thinking today. I know a striker who used to play in the Premier League and really stood out. Not sure where if he's playing in Championship League now, but Vardy.
Yeah, yeah.
Imagine
I
if
think
you
he,
could
I think he's gone
get.
to Italy or France or
Oh, has he?
somewhere, but yeah, yeah. Oh well, he'd be
Imagine you offer him a contract to come to Australia.
he'd certainly be exciting, that's for sure.
Yeah,
But yeah, he's clinical. He's done that all throughout the leagues, and it doesn't matter how old he gets, he still knows where the back of the net is. That's for sure.
yeah.
All right, let's leave the Sydney FC Mariners game there. Let's go to today's game. Wellington defeated Brisbane 2-1. So they fought back from a goal down. It was scored just before half time for the Raw through Justin Vidic. A bit of a long ball that he latched onto, and Wellington didn't deal with it very well. It was a very windy day in Wellington. It looked like it was blowing almost straight down the ground. So pretty tough for the players to deal with that, although the Phoenix players should be more than used to that one. But then the second half, big comeback. Corbin Piper made a big impact off the bench, providing 2 assists for goals to Kazuki Nagasawa and the winner for Carlo Miento, who also scored the equaliser last week for Perth. So he's made a bit of a thing of popping up, scoring late goals to win and rescue points for Wellington Phoenix. But interesting with both of these teams. Probably we expect them to be closer to the bottom of the table than the top. Brisbane obviously toiled their way to a win against Macarthur last week, but this was a new challenge for them going over to Wellington. And credit to Wellington, who improved rapidly in the second half against Perth and obviously took some of that into this game. But pretty hot, blown pretty hot and cold early in the season, these two.
Yes, I like the way Vidic finished his chance for Brisbane, but as far as the game went, neither side kept possession for a long period, and they played a lot of long ball actually. And whereas it's like a 50-50, isn't it? Especially if you've got good big defenders up against you. And I just, in comparison to other sides that I've watched in A League this week, they neither of those sides looked good on the ball.
No, it was
In,
pretty scrappy game, wasn't it, from both
yeah,
of them? And that may have been down to the conditions to a point, but I just think in terms of the quality, I'm not sure that they've both got what some of the other teams in the competition have.
no, no. It's after watching, Adelaide last week and the Jets this week. You see the young players, you see the speed, you see the ball on the ground, one-touch football. They can tear any team apart.
Yeah, yeah, agree. All right, the last game of the A League round is going to be on Monday night. So this podcast will be out on Monday, so it'll be tonight if you're listening on Monday. So the Macarthur Bulls, are set to host Adelaide in Monday Night Football. Something they tried a bit last year, Monday Night Football in Campbelltown. But it seemed to work pretty well. They drew some decent crowds. So I think both they're trying to do this, but also because they played only on Thursday in the ACL2 competition, they need a bit more to prepare. But speaking of that ACL2 game, was a 1-1 draw with the Vietnamese team, Kong and Ha Noi, who Stefan Mork now plays for. Tommy Uscock was the goal scorer for the Bulls, popping up with a powerful header. So good to see them get that point. I think they're in a decent spot in that competition. Probably just need to win their remaining home games to make sure they get through. But I think looking ahead to this game, the Bulls lost the opening round 1-0 to Brisbane. As I said before, it was a pretty kind of combative game. Brisbane bit kind of backs to the wall. While Adelaide were very impressive in a 2-1 win over Sydney FC. So I would expect the way that Adelaide played last week for them to bring that same approach to the Macarthur Bulls. Both tend to like to control possession, so that might be a bit of a clash in that kind of midfield. But how do you see this one playing out?
Well, it's very hard to analyse. You look back at the way MacArthur played last week against Brisbane, and they weren't good. Whereas I look at the way Adelaide played when they played at home, they were spectacular. But that doesn't mean that they're going to go away from home and play that same sort of football. So I think it could be a tight game. MacArthur would be wanting to win at home, and whether Adelaide have the defence to stop them. That's the other
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, I think that's the thing with Adelaide because while they're going to try and attack a lot, it's whether MacArthur can punish them on the break as well.
Yes.
We'll see what kind of lineup they play with. Sometimes when they play with Harry Sawyer up front, they play a bit more direct and try and kind of feed off him. So whether they looked, I don't think he started in that game, that ACL2 game. So maybe he's in line for a start. Gives the Adelaide defence something else to look at for a big challenge. So yeah, I guess we'll see how they go. But yeah, it should be interesting to see how MacArthur juggle these ACL2 games when they have to play an A-League game on the back of obviously traveling away to Vietnam during the week. No doubt it was hot and humid over there. So how they adjust back into the A-League.
Yeah, it'll be a test, but it's a test for the coaches too, isn't it? That's where the coaching staff get the players ready, get it into their players' heads as to what they're coming up against, what they need to do, etc.
Sure, if you ask any player as well, they'd prefer to be, competing in Asia and then domestically as well. So they'll see it as a welcome challenge, no doubt. The club as a whole.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, let's wrap things up talking about the Australian Championship, which continues to roll on into its third week this week. Let's go through group by group because it's starting to get actually very interesting at the halfway point. Group A, Broadmeadow Magic, they went down 1-0 to South Melbourne. Yuki Uchida scored his second goal of the Australian Championship. It's the only goal in this contest, meaning South Melbourne 3 from 3. So impressive start from South Melbourne to start the Australian Championship. In the other game in this group, Moreton City Excelsior, they lost 2-1 to Sydney Olympic. Olympic picking up their first win of the Australian Championship, which makes the group really interesting. As mentioned, South Melbourne 3 from 3, so they're out in front on 9 points. But then all of the other three, Sydney Olympic, Broadmeadow Magic, and Moreton City Excelsior, they're all on 3 points each. So very tight group behind South Melbourne. But we'll see with these kind of reverse fixtures coming up who makes it out of there. But yeah, good to see that very tight group in this one.
Yes. Yes. I wonder quite, when you see a side like South Melbourne, are there players there that A-League clubs or scouts of A-League clubs should be looking at?
Oh,
You know,
absolutely, absolutely. I think that's one of the best things of the Australian Championship, that this shop window for A-League clubs.
yeah, because like a club like Mariners, what do we need? We need a striker, someone who can score goals. Where do we
Yeah.
find them? It's in this
Well,
in this league, in this championship.
absolutely, absolutely. They're right there in front of our eyes.
Yep.
Let's go to Group B. This one's getting quite interesting. So, the first game on Saturday, Marconi beat the Wollongong Wolves 3-0. Akio opened the scoring for Marconi after Marconi really dominated the opening of the game. Ryan almost pulled one back for the Wolves with a header at the far post just before half time. But then, really, the turning point of the match, Harrison Bunell sent off, giving away a penalty that was converted by Franco Maya. So, Marconi dominated the first half. The Wolves are actually lucky not have two players sent off in that half. So, but it was really going to be tough slog from that point on in the game.
Yes, a bit disappointing for Wolves, and especially I'm looking forward to their next home game where they play Hobart. See if they can get their act together and show people what they can do. That'll be the
Yeah.
test for them. I think probably Wolves might need a couple of players if they want to continue going forward.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, round out the scoring for Marconi. 17-year-old Noah Anderson scored a screamer on the break to put the Wolves away for good. There was a good goalmouth scramble just before that the Wolves somehow managed to avoid conceding a goal, but it was really all Marconi in that second half, outside of a few kind of flintering moments for the Wolves. But yeah, it's a tough ask. And yeah, that game against South Hobart next week is going to be absolutely crucial because South Hobart got smashed 6-1 today by Heidelberg. Yeah, the Australia Cup finalists really continuing their good form before the Australian Championship. And I think South Hobart are struggling a bit in this competition. But as I said, the Wolves game next week is going to be absolutely crucial. Looking at the group, Heidelberg, perfect 3 from 3. They're just about through in this group. Marconi have won 2 of their 3 games. They only just lost to Heidelberg the first time around, so that's going to be an interesting tie in this group as well. And then, yeah, Wolves against South Hobart. It's an absolutely must-win for the Wolves if they want to stay in touch with their hopes of qualifying into the quarterfinals in the Australian Championship.
Yes, with Wolves, they'll have to go to Heidelberg and play Heidelberg in Victoria, but they will have Marconi at their ground at Wollongong, so that could turn it round. You never know.
Yeah, they definitely need to win one of those two. You'd think, unless Marconi slips up somehow against South Hobart. But yeah, that if they win that game against Marconi and keep their goal difference in the right spot, yeah, they're every chance of getting through. But yeah, first things first, they need to take care of South Hobart next Sunday. That game is in Wollongong.
Yes.
All right. Group C, Preston drew 0-0 with Avondale. Preston did carve out the best chances in this game, but couldn't get the job done. It was a great crowd, actually, for this game, 5,301 at Genesis Steel Stadium. So absolutely cracking. Good to see a great attendance in that one. And then today's game, Northwest Sydney Spirit beat Canberra Croatia 2-1. So Spirit overcame an early goal to fight back and win against Canberra Croatia. So looked like early that Avondale might run away with this group, but it's ended up being really tight. So Avondale's on 5, Northwest Sydney on 5, Canberra on 3, and Preston Lions on 2. So plenty to play for in this group. The star-studded Avondale team, including Bruno Fornaroli in that team, but yeah, they're a bit, don't know, they're lacking a bit at the moment. They only just struggled to draw against Northwest Sydney last week, and yeah, obviously another draw with Preston Lions this week. So we'll see what happens in this group, but very interesting one.
Yes, it's interesting to see the sort of players that a lot of these clubs have brought in to play in this competition. And obviously, they're very enthusiastic about performing and making sure that people know they're a good club.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's go to the last group, Group D. Sydney United, they've gone down 2-1 to the Metro Stars. So Sydney United yet to win a game so far in the Australian Championship. So they've gone down to the NPL South Australia Premiers in Metro Stars. In the other game in this group, a huge upset, Bayswater beating RPO Leichhardt 1-0. A scrappy goal from Bayswater was enough. Huge upset. And now they're actually sitting on top in Group D, which I certainly didn't see coming. And yeah, a big result. West RPO Leichhardt, who a lot of people are tipping to go far in this tournament. So huge credit to the West Australian club who've had to do a bit of travelling so far as well. Yeah, it's a big commitment to come all the way over to the eastern states on a couple of occasions. So yeah, they're just doing really well, the West Australian team.
Yes, that would be an interesting thing if they start to stand out and in the A League, Perth Glory start
Yeah.
to drop down. You
Yeah,
just never
well,
know, do you?
they couldn't do any worse than having a look at some of those players from Bayswater. But yeah, that group, Bayswater on 7, RP Leichhardt on 6, Metro Stars on 3, Sydney United on 1. So probably outside of Sydney United, who may make a comeback, but plenty to play for from those other teams. So another interesting group. Let's finish off with our team of the week. Some absolutely incredible performances from a lot of our Aussie players, plenty of players unlucky to miss out. But here we go, our team of the week. In goals is Tegan Micah, who got the nod to start for the Matildas. Courtney Nevin will play at left back. Alessandro Shiccardi in the middle with Cam Burgess. Lewis Miller playing right back. In the midfield, we've got Alex Badolato, who, of course, scored that hat trick, Kyra Cooney Cross, and Alex Robertson. And then up front, we got Maxi Caputo, scored double, Sapsford, who scored, and Caitlin Ford, who scored as well. So, pretty strong lineup. Probably a few players a bit unlucky to not make the squad, but we can only pick 11. Any ones you felt hard done by in that one?
Uh, Looking at that side, I think you basically picked people who were players of the match every game they played, sort of thing. It's, you know, probably Sam Kerr might feel that she needs a chance, but the thing is, she's not putting the ball in the net, is she? Not
Not,
like
not
those strikers that you've selected.
Well, yeah, there's a few strikers we missed out at as well. Probably Winnie Heatley, unfortunately, missed out at the back. She got player of the game for the Matildas, but as said, we can only fit 11 in, and we've done
Yeah,
our best.
yeah, I think it's a good selection.
All right, that's going to do us for this week. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed your debut on the podcast.
No, it's a pleasure, and hopefully I've said a few intelligent things.
You're welcome back anytime. Thanks everyone for joining us on the Aussie Game Podcast. We'll be back same time next week. In the meantime, enjoy your football.